Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabushai, Bahashem, Rechach Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahabushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahabushai. And pretty much, I'm going through the book of Timothy, and then after Timothy, I'll be going into the book of Thessalonians, all right, the first and second chapter. So the reason why I'm going through Paul's epistles is because it's very relevant to today. All right, the men that walk with Apostle Paul, the men that was called into the truth, but they went back into the world, right? All these different things that we encounter and see in today in the truth, the same thing was going on 2,000 plus years ago during the ancient Roman Empire. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I'll be transitioning sometimes from the KJV to the NLT version. 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter, verse 1. And this is dealing with what? Honor the widows. The NLT says advice about widows, elders, and slaves, right? So this is what the chapter is going to be dealing with. So I read in the KJV, 1 Timothy 5:1. It says, rebuke not an elder. So you're not supposed to rebuke an elder, all right? You as a younger man, you just stay in your place, all right? You're not in the camp. You're not just going to join the camp and be equal with a man that's been around longer than you, that has more experience than you. And you have particular men, they fall into this category. They think because they're cool with specific elders, they think like they're going to get like brownie points to be disrespectful to other men, or even be disrespectful to the elder. All right, you setting yourself up for failure. So don't be in the spirit to never rebuke an elder, especially not fight an elder, because I've seen examples like that as well. It says, but entreat him as a father. All right, you entreat him as your spiritual father. Why? Because he taught you this truth through Yahabushai's blood and sacrifice, which will make you wise unto salvation if you are part of the elect. All right, we know that we've been called, but we don't know if we're chosen yet. It says, and the younger men as brethren. So a man that is or has the title of being an elder, when you're dealing with younger men, you talk to them like you're talking to your younger brother. Stay out of trouble. I'm saying this because this leads to that. I got experience in this field. You may be going through this trial or tribulation that I already experienced multiple times. You talk to them like that. And the younger men as brethren, because they are your brethren, right? Your brothers in the faith, but they're younger than you. They're not as built up as you are because you came into the truth before them, all right? So the men that have come into the truth before other men, it's your job, to watch over the flock and to comfort the flock, right? And also the younger men, they got to be honest about what they're going through and not just keep things in. Verse 2, the elder woman as mothers, the younger as sisters with all purity. Let's read this in the NLT. NLT, 1 Timothy 5:1, it says, never speak harshly to an older man, which is an elder, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. And see, that's something that I always kept. That's a part of one of my characteristics. When an elder speak, an elder correct you, you may be going off, even if they say something that you already said, or something that you was about to say. It's not for you to correct an elder, all right? When an elder speak, just be quiet. That's all you got to do. You got certain men, they can't do that. They feel like they got to talk. Just shut up, bro. That's all you got to do. When an elder speak, give the elder the floor. It says, yep, I'll read again, NLT. It says, never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. Treat older women as you would your mother. All right? And treat younger women with all purity as you would your own sisters. In other words, just deal with the different believers in this truth respectfully, all right, according to wisdom. It says, take care of any widow who has no one else to care for her. And brothers have done that. You know, recently you had a particular elder brother in our camp pass away, and brothers was able to raise up money, you know, for the brothers' family, all right? And I'm pretty sure through the spirit they got more than what they thought they was gonna get. It says 4 NLT, but if she has children or grandchildren, their first responsibility is to show godliness at home and repay their parents by taking care of them. This is something that pleases the Most High, all right? Let's go down here, and that's referring to what? The older women that's in this truth. It says, because that's look, when women come into the truth, they don't have the same responsibilities as men. When you read Luke, the 2nd chapter, about this woman, Anna, from the tribe of ASSHUR, right? She was a widow, but how does she serve the Most High? Through prayer, fasting, you know, helping out the church. When you read in the New Testament, how did women of the Lord serve Yahweh and Yahweh Shai? Prayer, fasting, right? Being charitable, helping out the church, right? Now, if a woman has a husband, you be submissive to your husband. You obey his rules, his authority. You know, you speak when spoken to. You know what your husband likes and doesn't like. You know, you don't challenge your husband. You be a helpmate. You aid your husband in a time of emotional or financial distress. Any way you could support your husband and his needs, that's how you please Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. You serve your husband as if he were Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, all right? Because that's the order. It's Yahweh, then Yahweh Shai, then the Israelite man, then the woman, then the children, right? So that's how a woman served the Lord in this lifetime. So verse 5 NLT, now a true widow, a woman who is truly alone in this world, has placed her hope in the Most High. She prays night and day. Everything I was just saying. Asking the Most High for his help. Exactly. Verse 6, but the widow who lives only for pleasure is spiritually dead even while she lives. And that's a lot of these American westernized feminist women. And now westernization is global now. So these women, they're going to get the same judgment as Lot's wife. It says, verse 7, give these instructions, aka rules and regulations, to the church so that no one will be open to criticism. And see, this is what Paul was teaching Timothy, you know, Titus, and the different people that was under him in these different churches of Asia Minor. You know, the ordinances that Paul was teaching the believers goes back to what? The laws, the statutes, the commandments, right? As your faith gets built up, then you rehearse more of the laws, statutes, and commandments, and high holy days and Sabbaths, according to the new moon. Verse 8 NLT. But those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their own household, have denied the true faith. Such people are worse than unbelievers. It says a widow who is put on the list for support must be a woman who is at least 60 years old and was faithful to her husband, right? So a woman back during that time, you know, that needed support from the church, you know, she was asking for help. She had to show that, you know, she actually was loyal to her husband, that she's a woman of the Most High, right? It says, verse 10, because you're not just going to help out anybody. Verse 10, it says, she must be well respected by everyone because of the good she has done. Has she brought up her children well, right? According to the law, statutes, and commandments. It says, has she been kind to strangers and served other believers humbly? Has she helped those who are in trouble? Has she always been ready to do good? Because if you help somebody, you got to know who you helping, right? It's just like a person, they say, I'm uptight, I need money. Okay, why do you need money? You don't want to tell me? Then I can't help you. Verse 11, it says, the younger widows should not be on the list because their physical desires will overpower their devotion to Hamashiach, and they will want to remarry because they're not a woman that's in older age. A woman that's in older age, she needs help immediately. She doesn't have that support system, right? Then you got certain women, maybe, the kids don't talk to them for whatever reason. The kids ain't helping them out, right? So she don't have no support system. Her support system was the husband that's no longer on earth. So when you compare that to a younger woman, like how verse 11 is saying, a younger woman, she still got it. She's pretty. She could still remarry. All right, so she don't need immediate help from the church. You want to help the elder woman out first. It says, verse 12, then they would be guilty of breaking their previous pledge, right? Saying that they are a widow. It says 13, and if they are on the list, they will learn to be lazy and will spend their time gossiping from house to house, just like the women you see in society today, right? It says meddling in other people's business, aka being a busybody, and talking about things they shouldn't. And that's what a lot of Israelite women, that's what they do. They worldly. It says 14, so I advise these younger widows to marry again, have children, because you're not breaking no law. All right, you bound to your husband as long as he liveth, but if he die, you could remarry. There's nothing wrong with that. That's in our laws. That's our customs as Israelites. So I advise these younger widows to marry again, have children, and take care of their own homes. Then the enemy will not be able to say anything against them, right? For I am afraid that some of them have already gone astray and now follow Satan. Yeah, these younger women, they get sucked into the world faster, all right? Because they're more influenced by the God of this world, which is Satan and his physical counterpart, the Edomites, the so-called white man in sea line. 16, if a woman who is a believer has relatives who are widows, she must take care of them and not put the responsibility on the church. Exactly. This is why in the verses above, you have to vet people. You got to know who you helping and why you helping them. That's why you pretty much go through their resume to see, how other people think of them. Does anybody else have anything bad to say about them, right? Because you got to know who you helping. You're not just going to give away, free money. It says, then the church can care for the widows who are truly alone. Exactly. The ones that actually need help. Because don't say you need help if you don't truly need help. It says elders who do their work well should be respected and paid well. Exactly. And the apostles, they're taken care of. It says, especially those who work hard at both preaching and teaching. Exactly. And when you give the apostles a great millstone money, don't worry about what the fuck they do with the money. That's their money. They earned it. 18. For the scriptures say, you must not muzzle an ox to keep it from eating as it treads out the grain. And in another place, those who work deserve their pay. Exactly. It says, do not listen to an accusation against an elder unless it is confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses, which goes back to the law. All right. It says, those who sin should be reprimanded in front of the whole church. Exactly. If you go off, even including myself, this example is going to happen. All right. Got to do things decently and in order. You got to rebuke people so they see the examples on when not to be. And if a man is a true man of the Lord, he'll take the rebuke without feeling like he got to back talk or defend himself. It says, this will serve as a strong warning to others. What I just said. I solemnly commend you in the presence of Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushua and the highest angels to obey these instructions without taking sides or showing favoritism to anyone. You got a lot of this shit going on. I hate this shit. All right? Dude is fucking lukewarm. Something need to be said about that shit. All right? You look at the other camps as being exposed, all this wickedness, dudes committing adultery with other men's wives, and all they fucking get is a suspension, and they allowed to come back. Nah, that's respect of persons. All right? And whoever's in leadership, they don't need to be in leadership because they show respect of persons. Verse 22, never be in a hurry about appointing a church leader. Do not share in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. All right? Because whoever is going to be, in leadership as far as rank and all that in the camp, hey, that's up to Yahweh and Yahushua, right? Don't drink only water. You ought to drink a little wine for the sake of your stomach, because you are often so sick. Remember, the sins of some people are obvious, leading them to certain judgment, but there are others whose sins will not be revealed until later, right? And that's what happened in the case of Al-Azhar, IUYC, and all this other wickedness going on, ISUPK. All these dudes accusing us of certain things, then they end up getting exposed. So-called Brother Polite, that's his name. He not my brother, but that's his title, Brother Polite, He's pretty much the one that made up this stupid shit about the so-called great doctrine, Deuteronomy 22nd chapter, ancient custom and ancient Israel. All right, he's the one that started that shit. Oh, GMS is pedos and all that. Like, ain't nobody no pedo, man. We just break it down the ancient manner of custom on how that was dealt with according to the ancient world. We're not sovereign and independent, so we're not keeping laws like that. And we're under a grace period because we can't live up to that, old covenant standard in this sinful flesh. But a lot of you are westernized and you're ignorant, right? It says, in the same way, the good deeds of some people are obvious, and the good deeds done in secret will someday come to light. And that's it. You don't need to tell people everything you do. When you do a good deed, you do it through faith, and that's it. You don't want to do something to throw it in somebody's face, and you don't want to do it for vainglory. When you do things, let it be done through faith. So that's 1 Timothy, the 5th chapter. Lord willing, I'll come back with the 4th chapter. Shalom.